Hi, Zachary Reiser here. Welcome back to another bass effects review video. Today we are getting into an absolute beast of a pedal, the Strymon Volante. We have all been waiting for Strymon to release a sequel to their incredibly popular and famous El Cap, and the Volante delivers in every way a delay nerd could possibly want. So the Volante has an insane amount of features, and there's no way I can get to all of them in one video. And I suggest you go look at Strymon's own videos to get kind of detailed pictures of all of the little features that this thing has to offer. But I am going to try to give you a broad overview on bass, as well as combining it with some of my favorite effects. So let's get right into it. So as usual, here's my bass's dry tone, Dingwall ABZ 6-string on the neck pickup. So to start things off, I'm going to go real simple just to show off the character of the different delay types. So I have no low cut, no wear, no mechanics, no spring reverb on, the spacing is even, and I'm starting with the tape delay setup, which is meant to emulate kind of like a Echoplex style delay. Let's hear a little bit of that. Same settings, but going to the drum mode, which is meant to emulate kind of like a magnetic spinning drum, aka a Benson Echo Rec. It's a little bit more mid-range heavy and a little bit dirtier, breaks up a little bit more. And then finally, there's the studio mode, which is essentially emulating like a reel-to-reel studio delay. Super clean, super hi-fi. Honestly, if the low-cut, wear, mechanics, etc. aren't on, these are very, very subtle differences, but I'll show you a little bit of that now. So I want to quickly go through the kind of shaping controls of the pedal, the low cut, the wear, and the mechanics. And to do that, I'm going to leave it on the tape setting for now. They do all sound different depending on which mode or type of delay you're in. Let's start with low cut though. So this is essentially just scooping out the low. Super, super, super important thing for bass players because it gets the delay out of your way. It's kind of the opposite for guitar players. They like to roll off high end to get it out of their way. We should be rolling off a low end many times to get delays out of our way. So full frequency, it kind of muddies up my signal. Now rolling some of that low end out, you'll hear that the delay kind of gets out of my way a little bit. And now with a lot of low cut, very thin repeats on the top of my signal. show off the wear mode, I've gone to the drum delay type, and I've turned on a little bit of overdrive from my way huge Porkloin to give me some added harmonic content so you can really hear the high end being rolled off. So the way huge without the Volante. And now full frequency drum mode. And let's roll off some of that top end here. So you can hear there in the extreme setting that it gets pretty dark. So now let's combine the low cut and the wear, and now you're essentially getting a little bit of a bandpass delay signal. Sounds really good with the drum type. It gets you more into kind of that actual Benson Echo Rec territory, in my opinion. So instead of your normal modulated delay, you get these weird little quirks, little crinkles in the tape, kind of emulating that wow and flutter. So let's hear a little bit of that. I'm on the tape mode. I'm going to just kind of leave the low cut and wear where they are, and then I'm going to switch over to the drum and the studio settings because those mechanics are a little bit different than the tape. Let's hear some of that. So hopefully you're starting to hear that this pedal is just unbelievably lush and gorgeous, especially at long delay times with those high mechanics settings. It just brings something very, very unique to the table. Now, I'm actually going to turn the delay off for a moment because another feature that this pedal brings is a really, really good sounding spring reverb, because a lot of those old kind of tape machine delays would actually have spring reverbs built in. So let's hear a little bit of the reverb by itself. So I need to talk about one other feature of the Volante because I think it kind of shapes the overall character of the pedal, and that's the record level. So when you have it all the way down, the delays are as clean as they're going to be. There's basically no breakup at all. So let's hear that. Turning up that record level is going to give me, on those peak hits, a little bit of distortion. So let's hear some of that. And then when you start really cranking the record level, it gives you a very interesting character on the repeats. They're almost totally distorted, especially at really high input signals. All right, it's time. We've made it to my favorite section of the pedal, which is the playback and feedback heads and the spacing knob. It is unbelievable how many cool combinations of multi-tap delays you can get. And the fact that Strymon gave you the ability to not only choose the playback, but also the feedback heads is huge. This part of the video might be a little bit wordy for some people, and that's because I feel like for a lot of people, this section is a little bit confusing when you first get the pedal if you're not familiar with multi-head echo machines. So if I don't have any feedback heads turned on, you will get one repeat, and it's the repeat of the playback head that you have turned on. In this case, this is the quarter note repeat when I'm in the even mode. So that's it. That's all I get. I have to turn the feedback head on to get feedback, as you can hear. Now, if I turn off the playback head, I have no repeats at all on that signal. So if I want to get a dotted eighth note repeat, for instance, I would turn on both the playback and the feedback head when it's in the even setting on that third section there, and I'd get this. And you can hear it's faster. Similarly, if I want eighth notes, I'd click these two. And then 16th notes, I would click these two. So for instance, this setting right here would be a nice little slapback picked delay. When you start combining them, though, this is where it gets really powerful. So for instance, if I start with my quarter note delay, and this is quarter note playback and feedback, so I'm just getting this. Now let's say I want to get a little bit more interesting, though. I can turn on the dotted eighth, which is feeding in to the quarter notes feedback. So I get this. Kind of a gallop. But notice that you hear it at the front, but it kind of goes away, the dotted eighth that is, because the feedback for the dotted eighth is not turned on. So if I turn on the feedback head, though, for the dotted eighth, now you get this. And it kind of gets that lovely multi-tap tail. So now what would happen if I turn on all the playback heads and all the feedback heads? It's time to touch the spacing knob. So I've been even the entire time, meaning completely even spacings between the heads. So you get, for instance, here's an eighth note running into a quarter note. Now let's try turning that into more of a triplet feel. So let's get a little bit washier. So I've turned on all 4 playback heads, but only 1 feedback head, and I'm on triplet mode. And now I get this great kind of galloping repeat. And I put my way huge Porkloin back on just to add a little bit of grit so you can kind of hear the washiness of this tape delay setting. The last kind of feature I want to get into here on the playback, feedback, and spacing knob is the golden and silver ratios. This is kind of the ambient lover's dream. So we're going from less of a rhythmic kind of multi-tap delay into more of almost a pseudo reverb, especially at higher speed settings because of the way they mess with the spacing between the playback heads. So first let's start with 100% even, which sounds yet again like this. Just 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. Okay, now we pass through triplet and we get into golden, and all of a sudden you get this interesting kind of cascaded delay sound. And if I speed the tempo up, you start getting into some real reverb land. And if I put on all the feedback heads, it gets real fun, real fast. So let's crank the mechanics and the repeats a little bit here to get more into ambient land. All right, it's time to pair this bad boy with some other of my favorite effects pedals because it just adds a lovely coloring to everything. To start things off, I'm going to play around with this kind of high mechanics tape setting multi-tap vibe. Sounds like this. Really lovely. But I'm going to run in some synth bass into that. So I'm turning on my Boss OC2, my B.E.A.D fuzz pedal, and then my Boss Dimension C. And by themselves, they sound like this. Oh yeah, we're going there. And now we're going to run it into the Volante. Same synth settings, Boss OC2, B.E.A.D fuzz into the Boss Dimension C, but now I'm putting it on a very long single playback feedback head studio mode, but with really, really high mechanics. So you get this very interesting kind of artifact-filled repeat. Turned off the Boss OC2, I turned on the Moog low-pass filter, and now I'm running it in to this very ambient, high reverb Benson Eckerich style delay here. Now, another incredibly interesting feature that the Volante brings to the table is a very expanded sound-on-sound looping mode. Now, this is not your traditional loop pedal, like a Boss loop station, for instance. This is designed to emulate the sound of something looping through a tape machine. So it will get low cut, it will get worn down, the mechanics will get imparted, all of this stuff will happen every time it repeats, so it slowly degrades. So you can kind of have these long, slowly evolving textural components. So let's switch into sound-on-sound mode. So last thing here, I want to show off just the Volante again by itself. I'm in tape mode, good amount of spring reverb here. Obviously you can see I have a lot of mechanics going on here and a pretty long decay because it just sounds gorgeous. So that is my demo of the Strymon Volante, an amazing magnetic echo machine. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe below. It really, really does help me out. And I'll be back very soon with more pedals and effects demos, as well as some performance videos. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.